Good morning, parents. I'm Valerie Abrahamian with Advocates for Angels, and I'm the IEP navigator, and I help parents get the education their child needs to thrive both in school and in life after high school. Today's Facebook Live is entitled Virtual or Remote. What's the difference? So there is a big difference, parents, and that's what I'm going to focus on today. But first, I want to make a comment. I posted a article on what school buildings will look like when our kids go back to school. Uh, who knows when that's going to be, but when they do go back to school, they are going to be under strict guidelines. And of course, I've talked about this many times that this isn't the focus for today, but what those guidelines are going to be, requirements, obligations of students in them complying to rules and regulations that each school district will have decided upon by the school board and by the superintendents of every district. And so I posted an article about that and listed the things that every district might be requiring for their students when kids return to school. And I got a comment. I don't know if she was a teacher or a mom, but she said, "Well, Valerie, what do you want them to do, or what would you recommend, or what would you want them to change?" Something to that effect. And so I think she must have interpreted it that I was against those things. And my role as an advocate is to inform parents, to educate and inform parents, and to give them the knowledge and information they need to make an informed decision. Because IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Act, says that parents must be fully informed. They have a right to be fully informed, and therefore the school district is obligated to give them all the information they need to make a good decision regarding their child's special education program. So that's my purpose. I definitely don't have an opinion. I'm not telling parents what to do, what not to do, what's good or what's bad. It's a very personal decision for every family, for every mother and father and guardian to decide on what they want to choose to send their child back to school or to keep them out of school. So I just wanted to make that statement, because I'm not condemning or condoning any of these things. I'm just letting parents know, hey parents, you better be fully informed on what your child is going to expected to do, behave, conform to, and comply to when they go back to school. So that was what that article was about. And that's really what all of my information is about, is letting parents be fully informed. So moving on to today's topic, virtual or remote. What's the difference? So let's take virtual first, okay? So, well, first of all, I want to make this statement. For virtual, remote, or remote, it's going to be the same obligations, is that grades are going to be given now. It's not going to look like the fall where grades were not given. Grades are going to be given. It's going to be standards-based. Teachers must adhere to standards-based curriculum, and students must adhere to following that curriculum, and students must fulfill the requirements to pass every class, just as if we were in the school buildings. So that's a big change from where we were back in the March, April, May, and June. Teachers must follow the typical standardized curriculum, teaching new material and new concepts, okay? So that's for virtual or remote. That's the same. It's going to be standards-based. Now, let's take virtual. So for virtual, if the school reopens, the virtual teachers will be in the classroom, and there won't be any more virtual. So this is where it gets kind of confusing. So if you pick virtual, the virtual teachers are going to be the teachers that, when schools remain closed, I'm talking about California, okay? So most schools are remaining closed. So they're hiring remote teachers, which are different teachers than your classroom teachers. Then the virtual teachers are going to be the classroom teachers. So your classroom teacher, who would be your virtual teacher, when and if schools reopen after this semester in the fall, then you would go from virtual and just toggle back into the school grounds, going to school live, and you would have the same teacher. If you choose remote, the remote is going to be a completely different teacher than your virtual classroom teacher. And your remote teachers it's not going to be your same teacher, it's not going to be your same case carrier, and it's going to be a different kind of, you're not in that class anymore, you're not with that teacher anymore. So the risk of remote is that if you choose remote, then if you choose to go back to the school, if schools do reopen in the fall, you might be risking your child having a space in that classroom or even a space at that school site. So I'm going to break it down even more because I know it's really confusing. So virtual teachers, if you choose virtual, okay, the virtual teachers, they are the same teacher as your classroom teacher. You're going to have the same case carrier, and I hope you parents know what your case carrier or case manager is. That is the special ed teacher on your child's case. That is the case manager, oversees that case and does the paperwork, communicates with you, oversees the teachers, oversees basically the implementation of your child's IEP at the school site level. So you would have this, if you choose virtual, you would have the same case manager, you'll have the same teacher, and if schools open, close, you're going to be able to toggle back and forth with the same teacher and the same case carrier from virtual to school site, from virtual to school site. So that would be the virtual model if you chose that. Now, but this is the thing, if you choose the virtual model, that curriculum is going to be independent study. Those virtual teachers are not required to get online and teach live academic instruction to your child. It's basically going to be that they're going to give the parents the curriculum, and parents, you're going to be responsible to teach your child that curriculum. It's going to be independent study. These teachers are going to have office hours or specific times of the week and days of the week where you can go and meet your teacher online and ask your teacher some questions, or have your student ask your teacher some questions, but it's not, the teacher is not going to be teaching and overseeing that student. It's going to be independent study, just as if you would take a virtual class from a college, or you would get like an evergreen course or a virtual course, and there's no teacher teaching that class. You're basically teaching yourself by the curriculum that is provided to you online. That's virtual. Now, related services need to be implemented, whether it's virtual or remote. Either way, related services on your IP, which are also called designated instructional services, which are on the IP, which mean your OT, your speech, your applied ABA, your autism, your physical therapy, your adaptive PE, whatever it may be. Those are related services, aka designated instructional services. Those have to be provided. They're on the IEP. They must be provided virtually or in other alternative manner. Okay, so that's the virtual, if you choose virtual. Now, it's very parent and student driven. It is not teacher driven. Okay, just to make that clear. So parents, because it's parents and student driven, parents, you must keep track of your child's services, what services they're getting, what services they're not getting, because, you know, we need to, you know, I'm pretty, I don't have a lot of faith that they're going to implement the IEP with fidelity, because they didn't before. They're not prepared. They have not spent the whole summer training teachers, figuring out how to provide a virtual or remote education with fidelity, where everyone's on the same page, everyone feels confident moving forward with this is going to be good, this is going to work, I know what I'm doing. Parents, all you have to do is go online and look at Facebook and check out what teachers are saying. They have no idea what's going on, who's going to be their kids, if they're going to be, what class they're going to be teaching. They're pretty much very in the dark still, to put it that way. So, so parents, it's going to be very parent driven. This is a tip I want to give you. Parents, if you have an IEP meeting and they say that we have to change the IEP to identify that this is a virtual or remote learning model IEP now, do not let them change your direct services to a consultation or collaborative model. When it says, okay, so I'll give you an example. If you have speech and language for a half hour, one time a week, and it says direct services, which means the speech and language pathologist gives a 30-minute therapy session to your child for 30 minutes. That's the speech pathologist providing services. When it says consultation or collaboration model, that means the teacher collaborates or consults with the teacher, not necessarily with your child. So don't let them change that from direct services to consultation, because that's going to relieve their obligation of that service provider to provide your child with direct services, meaning a real live online therapy session. Okay, so be aware of that. Don't let them tell you that they can't give you a group, because I hope parents, you know the difference between a group session and an individual session. An individual session is the therapist and your child individual session. A group session is a group of children and the therapist and your child. It'll say right there on the services page, group, your group will be checked or individual will be checked, okay? And it should say, and then there's another part that says either collaborative or direct, okay? And you want to make sure it says direct services, and whether it be group or individual, don't let them tell you, especially for group, that they can't do group services because it's a HIPAA violation. It is not a HIPAA violation. HIPAA relates to release of information of your child's records or identification of your child as a special ed student. Many districts are saying it's a HIPAA violation, therefore they can't provide group services. This is not true at all. The healthcare they've been doing help providing services through technology way before we even closed for the school closure for the virus, and in groups. So that's not true. It's an excuse to deny services, and they must continue to provide group therapy. Okay, so that would be the virtual model. Now let's go into the remote model. So remote is going to be, like I stated before, a completely different teacher than your regular classroom teacher. You don't know who this teacher is. Nobody knows who any of these remote teachers are yet. But they are going to designate remote teachers who are only going to be teaching remote. They're not going to be teaching in the classroom. They're not going to go back to the classroom. They're going to be remote teachers unless the virus completely goes away, we open completely, and there's no more virtual at all. Okay, then they're going to have to change it back. But as for now, there's going to be specific remote teachers hired to teach remote education. So you're going to have a different teacher. You're going to have a different case manager. You're going to, but with remote, you are going to receive in live virtual classes, virtual academic instruction with the remote teachers. They're going to get online every day. They're going to teach your child, and it's going to be teacher driven. And it's going to be very similar to if your child was in school, only in a remote learning model. So that's the difference, parents. So remote, you're going to get a real teacher teaching your child. Services, again, same thing with the services, as I said, for virtual. Service must continue to be delivered virtually. This is another tip I want to give you, parents. Whether you have a virtual learning or remote learning, make sure you ask for a visual schedule, a schedule of, well, in virtual it wouldn't matter because you don't have a schedule because no one's getting online teaching you. So for a remote schedule, you're going to have a schedule of, okay, at this time you're going to have your speech session. At this time you're going to have your teacher teaching remotely. At this time you're going to have whatever else, if you have other services. If your child's in junior high or high school, you're going to have different teachers getting on teaching different classes, or maybe the remote teacher is just going to teach all the different classes. We don't know yet. But nevertheless, you should have a schedule that you know you're going to follow for every day. Another tip, do not let them overlap your services in your virtual academic instruction. Because if you have speech and language at Friday at 10 o'clock, and then you have your virtual or your remote teacher teaching science on Friday at 10 o'clock, then you have to forfeit one of them. No, that's not appropriate. They have to coordinate the schedule so that there's no overlap and there's no conflict with your services and your academic instruction. So make sure to get a schedule, okay? So, and the same thing goes, same tip I gave you regarding your IEP. If you have an IEP that would change you over to the remote learning model, make sure they don't change your IEP services from direct service to consultation or collaborative. Same thing with the group. It's not a HIPAA violation. So let's see. So now, so many parents are just so confused with what should we do. So obviously, if your child is a really high functioning child that has very strong academics and that has good tech skills and can get on the computer and is very self-motivated, then the virtual model might be a great model for your kid. I know lots of kiddos that are more like the what you would call Asperger's kids that are very high functioning, very intelligent, and they are loving the virtual model because they don't like school. They don't like the social interactions. They don't like all the sensory stuff, overload constantly, coming at them constantly. School is very difficult for them. And most of them are very intelligent. Most of them are highly motivated to do academic work, and especially the ones that the subjects they like and are good at. So lots of kids, those kinds of children are thriving in this kind of situation. But that's a very small percentage of kids on IEPs. Most children on IEPs are struggling in a huge way. So, so the virtual learning model would generally not be a good choice because you are going to be the teacher mom, and you're going to have to drive everything, and you're not going to get a teacher teaching you virtually, and you are going to have, to be on your own. So, but then the problem is that if you don't choose virtual, or if you do choose virtual because you want to continue to have your child have the same teacher, right, and have the same school site, right, then you're going to be on your own. So if you choose the remote learning model where it's going to be teacher driven, you're going to have the same case carrier, the same teacher, and you want your teachers to be responsible to teaching your child, then you are at risk of losing your teacher and your case carrier and even your place in the classroom and possibly the school site, which is really sucky because that is not a good choice for us as parents of kids on IEPs. Now, this might not be the exact same, what I just said, in terms of if you choose virtual, then you get the same teacher. If you choose remote, you don't. Some districts might not be doing that. This is also the confusion that comes in with this situation, is that lots of different districts are doing things differently, but many are doing that. So, I'm giving you information. You need to check it out with your own school site, what's happening with your school district and what they've chosen to do. But that definition between virtual and remote is absolutely the same, no matter where you are across the nation. That's a virtual model and that's a remote model, the difference between what they would look like. Okay. So, most likely schools are gonna remain closed until the spring anyway, right? We're probably most likely not going to be going back until after Christmas break. So everybody's going to be either on virtual or remote until that time, at least in California. So it's just, you have to make the decision. Okay, do I want to just bite the bullet and have virtual for the first semester so that I can make sure that my child gets to go back to the same school site and the same teacher, and choose virtual? So if they do open in after Christmas break, we can just go right back to school. If you're a mom that wants your child to go back to school, then that would be a good decision to make. But then you're going to have to suffer through the first semester with you being a teacher again. So it depends on your situation. If you have a job, if you don't have a job, if you're able to sit next to your child every day and help them to learn. If you choose remote, then you're going to, be fine with having teachers teaching, but then you have to keep that commitment for a whole semester, and then you have to apply to go back into the school site after, if schools do reopen, and you're at risk of possibly losing your place in the classroom and possibly even at the school site level. So I hope that you got that. It's kind of difficult to explain, but I hope I did a good job explaining it to you, parents. And I will see you next Monday for my next Facebook Live. Everyone take care, stay well, and be safe.